raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome, folks, to the Raising Cain Show, where we tackle the issues that shape our lives and communities. I'm your host, Nate Cain, and tonight we're doing something a little bit different. I don't usually bring local candidates onto the show because of how wide our audience is, but I recently met Courtney Knill at a Republican event here in West Virginia, and her passion and vision for Charlestown stopped me in my tracks. I knew we had to have her on, not just for the folks in Charlestown, but to inspire conservatives across the country to consider making that sacrifice of public service in their own communities. Whether it's city council, local school board, or county offices, these roles often get overlooked, yet they're absolutely vital, sometimes impacting our daily lives even more than state or federal races. So tonight, we're thrilled to introduce Courtney Knill, a lifelong resident of Charlestown, West Virginia, and a dynamic candidate for city council in Ward 3. With a resume spanning genetic plant research, victim advocacy, and small business ownership, Courtney brings grit, creativity, and compassion to the table. A Shepherd University graduate, she's coached youth sports, painted vibrant canvases, and championed the arts, all while advocating for public safety and transparent leadership. Let's dive in and hear her vision for preserving Charlestown's historic charm while building a future where families and businesses can thrive. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Courtney Knill. Courtney, thank you so much for joining the show.
Nate, thanks so much for having me on tonight.
So I guess a good place to get started with this is, what inspired you to run for public office and city council?
So I think this really tracks back quite far. So I originally got involved in politics while I was going to my university, Shepherd University in West Virginia. While I was there, I was part of the college Republicans. I actually ended up serving as vice president for them. And that's what got me plugged into my local GOP here in Jefferson County, West Virginia. Ever since then, it's been an interest. I ended up growing a bit of a following on the social media platform. Back then it was Twitter, now it's X. And just sharing my thoughts with America and across the globe, apparently, too. And my audience over there just started to grow, and people just really appreciated me being honest and sharing my thoughts about politics. It was something I cared about. So I ended up volunteering for multiple different campaigns over the years, going to Iowa caucus, going and helping out in some Pennsylvania state Senate races. And then this year, when Trump got into office for the second time, went to the inauguration, to the Liberty Ball. And I've had just so many people that I've been surrounded with locally. And something that I've been talking about online for quite some time is that, look, if you really care about politics, talking about it online can only do so much. I say that as someone who does talk about it online, but at a certain point, you need to put your money where your mouth is. Be willing to put yourself out there and either jump in and help other candidates with their campaigns, or be willing to maybe run yourself. I had local people in my community that approached me about running for Charlestown City Council, and it wasn't an immediate yes for me. It was going to have to change how I live my life quite a bit, having a larger audience online. I even had some, security concerns, but ultimately it seemed like the right thing to do. It seemed like the time to step up and serve my community. There was certainly a need, as there weren't any conservative candidates interested in the seat. And currently, the city council that I'm running for, 7 out of 8 members are what I would consider to be very liberal. So the definite need was there. And so I decided to make the plunge and run for office myself.
Well, thank you for doing that, because we need good, fresh conservatives, to run for these positions and get out there and hopefully make a difference in their community. There's a lot of, you're kind of, your story's a little bit different, actually quite a bit different than mine. I grew up in California, moved all over the place, and kind of been a gypsy my entire life, mostly because of the military. Now you've lived, you've called Charlestown your home your entire life. And so I'm really curious, what's one memory from growing up there that shaped your love for Charlestown? And how does that inspire your vision for its future?
So, having been here almost 30 years, it's hard to pick just one. But I think one thing that really just, I don't know, strikes home for me is hearkening back to the days of my very first job that I ever had. I actually worked for the city of Charlestown as my first job. I was one of their lifeguards at the Jefferson Memorial Park pool. I taught swim lessons there, and just being able to serve the community in that capacity. I was a strong swimmer, went through all my lifeguard training, and being able to spend each day protecting people's kids, keeping them safe, and just looking out for the community, teaching, young kids how to swim for the first time, and just being able to give back to the community was something very rewarding. Of course, it was nice being a 15-year-old getting a paycheck too,
Mm.
but that was my first real experience doing something outside of just school and being able to do something beneficial to my community.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a funny experience with my first job. I worked in Pomona, California, in a pretty rough neighborhood. And I think on my second day working, I was working in a sandwich shop, making sub sandwiches. And a guy who was clearly from out of town, he had like a Midwest draw or something, and came in, was ordering something. And then he walked outside, and 2 homeless guys came up, and these are big guys, and they asked him for money, and he opens up his wallet and handed, each of them some money, which is you don't do that in California. That's a good way of getting robbed, and that's exactly what happened. So they started beating him up and taking his money, and I ran out there with my broom, started, hitting these guys and telling them that the cops were on their way. And yeah, that was my first experience, in a not necessarily not so small town, but that's one of the reasons why I'm glad to be living in West Virginia today, because of just how much safer, how much more tight knit the community is here. And of course, I live a couple of towns north of you in Hedgesville, but it has absolutely been a great experience moving here. And this is the thing that I've seen about people in West Virginia, is that a lot of the people here would give you the shirt off their own back. Even people who don't have a lot, they're generous, and it's something that has just been amazing, to see and experience. Now, Charlestown is known for its rich history, from its Revolutionary War roots to its charming downtown. How do you plan to preserve that heritage, but at the same time fostering growth that supports small businesses and families? Because that seems to be the real challenge that I found in West Virginia, is that a lot of people don't like change, and that's why they live here. But at the same time, we've seen this massive decline in, West Virginia's population. We've seen young people leave and move to other places. And a lot of that has to do with the lack of opportunities, with good paying jobs and things like that. So when you are talking to people about how to, to maintain that rich history and at the same time, have, forward thinking ideas about how to grow the economy and how to, benefit small businesses and families, how do you put that in your own words?
Sure. So it's a very complex issue. I know it's been said that most complex problems don't have super simple answers. So there's quite a few moving pieces here. But some of the things that I've been talking to voters about, because as much as I can, I've been trying to focus on what I can actually do at the city council level, because there's, certainly things that, are above what I can do if there are county issues, state issues. But the primary thing that I've been focusing on is, we have this wonderful history here, but are we doing anything with it? And right now, downtown Charlestown isn't entirely a ghost town, but it's not as strong in commerce as it should be. We have a couple really wonderful businesses down there, but unfortunately, we see this trend of small businesses coming into downtown Charlestown, restaurants opening up, shops opening up, a lot of locally owned small places. And unfortunately, we see the businesses struggle and then ultimately go out of business. So that's been a big challenge for this community. In addition to that, as while a lot of West Virginia is losing residents, Jefferson County is actually gaining quite a bit. So
Hmm.
we have a ton of residential construction that's going in right now in Charlestown. I know Berkeley is experiencing some of that as well.
Yeah.
But it's a very unique situation because you have all this residential growth that's coming in, but business growth has not been catching up. It hasn't even been staying at a steady growth rate. It's been staying about the same. So that's something that needs to change. And I wasn't sure initially what could be done to tackle that. So what I did is I actually went down and talked to many of the business owners that we have in our downtown and asked them, hey, what are you seeing? What's going on? Other businesses that aren't making it down here, what's happening? And just listening to what business owners have to say. One of the big things that I did here was uh, labor, that they're having a lot of trouble with finding labor, finding people that want to work and come down to be as part of these small businesses. So one of the things that I have come up with as a way to tackle that is creating a partnership program with the local high school where we'll have a central hub, essentially, where business owners can post their job listings. Whether it be, just a little bit of part-time help, something full-time, could even be something that's temporary, that's just a few hours, 1 week or two. And so, with the partnership with the high school, we know that high schoolers aren't going to go in and approach 10 small businesses, walk in and, shake out their hand and try to meet those business owners to get a job there. Everything's moved very digital, very online. So, I
Mm,
think we can
that's
do
a good
things to
point.
accommodate that. So, by setting up this relationship between the high schoolers that are looking for after school jobs, they'd like to make a little bit of money, and then pairing them up and coordinating with the downtown business owners so that way they can post their listings and then students will have a profile that they can set up. Hopefully we can do maybe something like a resume workshop with the school so that way they'll have their profile, but essentially the idea is that they'll be able to scroll on their phones and then apply for jobs that are in town. And the distance between downtown and the high school I think might be maybe 2 miles or so. Very close. It's keeping the kids local, connecting them with jobs, and it's beneficial not only to the business owners for getting them labor, but it's beneficial to the kids as well because we know that it's good for kids to learn about the world, to get out and work. I know I did when I was young. It sounds like you
Mhm.
did as well.
Oh, yeah.
But then it keeps them out of trouble too. So then that way they're doing constructive things with their time after school.
That is a very good point, and it's a great idea because this is a problem. And in fact, that labor shortage, I think, in some ways, has become even greater because of new policies with the current administration to move out illegal aliens out of our country. I don't know if you've noticed this. It's kind of an interesting thing. So uh, I've noticed that there has been, like, especially fast food restaurants and things like that, there's been a sudden shift where there was a lot of clearly, Spanish speaking folks that where English was not their, their greatest, strong suit. And so, no judgment, but I have to wonder if they were here legally. And
Mm.
it is completely shifted where now I'm seeing a lot of high schoolers, a lot of older folks that maybe are retired, that are working those jobs. And so in one way, it's a good thing because there's a great job market for people that do want to work, but maybe don't want a full-time job, maybe just want some part-time work. There's a great opportunity. And I agree. I think high schoolers, it's better for them to be engaged in something where they can make some money, where they can learn a good work ethic, where they can, and part of the reason why these jobs are important for, I think, for young people especially, is because they're not going to see realistic expectations in the workplace if they just go to college and then go get a job but have never actually worked. And I've met so many people with college degrees, but they're having a hard time getting a job because they don't have any work experience. And people want to see work experience. And even if you have some part-time work experience, that's better than nothing. So that's an important thing. So I'm glad to see that you are doing that. I think that's a really great idea. Now, you worked in the Jefferson County prosecuting attorney's office, and that gave you a front row seat to the challenges of public safety. What's one key lesson that you learned there, and how will that, be applied to making Charlestown safer for everyone?
Sure. So I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to serve as a victim advocate for the Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. I was there for almost 3 years. So I got a very in depth look into what is going on in our community in all corners, people in all walks of life, and was truly able to see some of the issues and problems that we have, not only the root of it, but maybe potential ways that we can go about fixing it. There's Every community has its problems. Some problems harder to tackle than others, but something that I think that's plaguing a lot of communities is people struggling with addiction, particularly
Mhm.
drug addiction. It was something that we saw time and time again coming through the prosecuting attorney's office, and I think that if you're at least in this part of the country, almost anyone that you can talk to on the street, they know someone that has either struggled with addiction or unfortunately maybe has lost a loved one or a friend to drug addiction. That was something that I saw time and time again. And so I think that trying to help those people, because when you have, theft, when you have homelessness, a lot of those unfortunately tie back to the drug problem that we have that's underlying. One of the particular things that I am in support of for Charlestown is the Charlestown Police Department is hoping to add a social work position directly to the police department, because it's very often that police officers are going out to calls that really maybe aren't quite a police issue. It's a person issue. It's someone who's struggling, and getting those people connected to resources like drug rehabilitation is so key to helping our community come out of the problems that we're having. We had Attorney General Patrick Morrissey, our now governor, had won big against the pharmaceutical companies and got that big opioid settlement. Well, Charlestown does get a piece of that, and so one of the things that I think that money should be used for is that social work position that can connect people to resources. There are some great things around, like the Mountaineer Recovery Center that helps people struggling with drug addiction. So I think that tackling the opioid crisis, tackling drug problems in the community is a wonderful way to serve the community and just help all of us to reach a better potential here.
Yeah, I think you're right. That issue is such a complicated one. But if you talk to anybody who has been a former drug addict who is clean and has been successful in that, it's interesting. Oftentimes you'll hear what moved them or what changed, would help them to get clean, is very different than what you'd expect. To be honest with you, I had no idea what to expect. It's never been an issue for me. But when I was running for Congress, my wife and I would go out and we'd talk to people, and at least a couple of times we ran into people who were former heroin addicts, and
Wow.
in both cases, both cases were women, and I asked them, point blank. I said, "How did you get clean? What motivated you? What helped get you to the right place?" Because they were doing needle exchange programs and methadone clinics and things like that in trying some of those things out, like in Martinsburg, and they all said the same thing. Those things don't work. They make it worse. But what actually helped them was when they were arrested
Mhm.
and they had two choices: either get clean and you'll be able to get your child back, or continue using drugs and you're going to lose your child and you're going to end up doing hard time. And the threat of that was what got both of these women, because they both had daughters, to straighten out their lives. And so I think there's something to be said about tough love. We've got to have that, but at the same time we've got to provide the necessary resources to help somebody who is trying to do the right thing, who is trying to get clean, to help them be able to find gainful employment. A lot of these people, I think, have emotional issues. They may have, they may struggle with, you know, other things that are comorbid with their addiction, and so getting counseling and and parenting skills and things like that, and job skills, those are all critically important. So I'm glad that you are taking an interest in that, and there is money for that purpose, so it makes sense to use it for that purpose. So that's great. So as a painter and graphic designer and arts advocate, you've seen how creative expression, and that's one of those things I think that can be a tool for, for people who are dealing with emotional problems, right? Giving them an outlet. You've seen how that creative expression can strengthen a community, even, not just a person, but also within the community. What role do you think the arts can play in Charlestown's growth? And how would you support local artists?
So I really like that question. So anyone that's been to downtown Charlestown in the last couple of years know that a few years ago, this was, I think, let's see, back to, I want to say maybe 2018, we actually have a really wonderful mural that was done. We had an artist come in to work on it, but community members all came together to put this mural together. It's on one of our streets downtown. And I think coming together to create beautiful things in our community is something that's so special. People now that come to downtown Charlestown, a lot of them want to go over and get photos with the mural. It's something that is an attraction, it draws people in. And I think that a lot of places that people like to visit do have something that people want to go take pictures of. And so if there's any art that we can create here, I think that's a wonderful thing. It not only brings the community together, getting to meet your neighbors and other people that you wouldn't normally have an interaction with, but it also brings something that's of value to the town. I would love to get more of our students, that are in, the schools involved in projects. But I think it's just a really great thing that people can be passionate about. It increases that community engagement, but it also can be helpful for just property values and give something for people to come down and do together in the community. I know that beautification of the
Mhm.
town is something that quite a few people that I've been out on the campaign trail talking to, something that is of value to them. And it is to me as well. Not only is it nice to have sidewalks that are safe to walk on, that aren't full of cracks and bricks and things that are bubbling up, but also just that aesthetically it looks nice. It looks like somewhere that you'd like to go and spend some of your time, because the way that you're going to treat a place and have respect for it when it looks nice and it looks like something that you would want to take care of, I think can be very beneficial to a community.
Absolutely. In fact, I've seen, some examples of just amazing turnaround stories. One of those was Frederick, Maryland,
Mm.
where they beautified their downtown area and built the most amazing, beautiful place that, you want to go hang out, because you've got this waterway that kind of goes through these shops and restaurants, and they've brought in all kinds of just great stores and shops and restaurants there. And so it's become, kind of a place of, for the nightlife, where people want to come and they feel safe and it's clean. And that's the kind of thing, to me, you've got to create that number one, safe environment. Yeah. And one of my regulars in the chat mentioned romantic. I think that's a great thing, right? When couples want to come out and have dinner together and, take a stroll, through the downtown, that's the kind of thing that will grow a community, because it will become a hot spot, for people. And that's something that I think a lot of small towns are dealing with, is the challenge of how do we reshape the downtown area, because the downtown areas, a lot of the older shops, that might have been, it might have been a clothing shop, or it might have been a mom and pop, shop. A lot of those places have closed down because you got Walmart, down the road, right? And so I was a city councilman for one term in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and I remember this was an issue for us too. Um, and we did a study on this, and what we found that was important to redeveloping your downtown was really bringing in the shift had happened from your mom and pop shops and retail shops to more of artisan type shops and those type of niche um, products being sold that will bring not just the people from the local community, but bring outsiders in that want to see, and shop and do things. So, yeah, I think that's great. Um, what do you see right now for Charlestown in that area with your downtown? What do you think is one challenge that resonates not just with Charlestown, but nationwide with small towns? And how would you
So,
address it?
so each small town is going to have some of its own unique challenges. And I think that one of the things that is facing many of the small towns is that it's a little bit of a ghost town in downtown. There's not many people coming down there. And right now, Charlestown particularly has a little bit of a unique situation in that right now the county owns quite a few of the buildings that are in historic downtown Charlestown.
Mm.
Currently, there is a plan in place that they are going to be buying a large building and then moving those county offices out of all of those buildings. So it's going to create a very big shift and change in that downtown sector. So one of the things that I would like to do is serve as the liaison between the county and the city, because truly it's going to be beneficial for both the county and for the city for things to go well with that transition. And the last thing that I want to see those buildings sitting vacant. And I think that that really is the plague of a lot of downtowns, because if you're going to just walk past empty storefront after empty storefront, chances are you're not going to be spending your time there. That can lead to areas not being maintained, and just if there's nothing going on, there's nothing worth seeing down there. And so I think that advertising can play a very big factor. Being a younger Gen Z candidate, I'm very much in favor of leveraging social media to get the word out about things
Mhm.
that are going on in town. It's just something that's so beneficial because it's advertising that is essentially free. Other than business owners just taking the time or having an employee take some time to post about what's going on, putting things on Facebook, Instagram, X, and just getting the word out about what you can offer and what your town can offer is so key and vital. There's no reason why not to be using the free platform. And many people in your community will be so excited to see
Mhm.
what's actually going on. They want you to come and show them where they can park downtown, or what event is going to be happening next weekend, or what burrito they can order at a restaurant that's downtown. They want to see it. It's just a matter of getting the business owners on board with producing that kind of content, or even for the town, with them engaging in some of that and promoting the businesses that they have inside the town.
That's a great idea. In fact, when I was running for Congress, I remember doing a lot of research through Facebook to try to find out information about these different towns that were in my district. And there were a number of towns that did a really good job of posting events that were going on, and getting people engaged and excited about coming down to this town square to participate in a parade or whatever. Um, but there were so many towns that had nothing,
Mhm.
and you know what, the difference was noticeable. The towns that did have that, they had vibrant, downtowns that were flourishing and were going through beautifications. The ones that weren't doing any kind of advertising, that weren't driving, people to the town square, those places were dead. And so that is, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That is critically important. Advertising is important, and we also have to find ways to encourage entrepreneurship. This is one of the challenges, quite honestly, that I think, especially for like kind of downtown areas, um, that is going to be impacted by a lot of the curb on illegal immigration. For all of the trouble that has come into our country through illegal immigration, there's also a lot of very entrepreneurial, pioneering type people that have migrated here, some legally, some not, but who have to find a way to make a living. And so they come up with business, they start restaurants and things like that. So that is something that we've got to find a way to get more people engaged. And I think part of it is just a lack of knowledge, a lack of training. um you know Excessive fees and taxes and things like that, that kind of price people out of being able to start a business. And some of it is just a lack of education. I mean, a lot of people think they have a great idea, but they don't know how to do, they don't know how to run a business, and they don't know how to, do a market analysis and things like that. And there's some great programs out there. One that I would definitely recommend to you, in it to connect with and find a way to integrate them somehow in with your city, is the mentorship programs. There's a lot of mentorship programs where you have successful business owners that give their time to help other people wanting to start a small business, and they will help them. And what they've done, and this is really cool. I remember when I started a business, back in the day in Pennsylvania. I remember going to one of these mentor meetings, and the guy said, by the way, we have a relationship with the university, and you know, if you basically write out your business plan, they will do a market analysis for you for free. And something that normally would cost you, tens of thousands of dollars, they'll do it for free because it's part of, the school curriculum, for one of the degree programs that they had there. So those types of collaborations can be extremely beneficial. Same thing with like, work projects. In Hawaii, they had a program there um, where students, kids in high school or people who are just graduating, they could join a program where they would learn their job, and this basically was Job Corps. But they would learn their job, and they got experience, real world experience working and learning a trade, but working for the city and working for various cities and doing those types of jobs. And so that's another great resource that you could tap into. But those are the kinds of things, and that kind of outside of the box thinking is the thing that is going to help you to make Charlestown a success. Now,
Yeah, and I so appreciate you bringing that up, because that's actually my background. I have a degree in business, and when you're talking about the business analysis that takes place, that's actually something that I did as my senior project, was working with local Jefferson County businesses to help them make choices for their future and what direction they were heading. And so I very much would like to bring that to Charlestown. I know that one of the things that I've seen is that many of the businesses that do try to get started here, that there's a lot of people with that initiative. They're going to go and get it done.
mhm,
But unfortunately, these businesses pop up and then they just don't last. They can't
yeah,
make it past just a few months. And I think that there's many other downtowns that see that happening too. So I think that as the leadership of the town, if we can be helpful to them, if we can help point them towards mentorship programs like you're talking about, give them training, help them to understand what the business climate is going to be like, just to set them up for success rather than failure, I think is
yeah,
just so wonderful.
absolutely. And with your background in that, you're kind of a natural, person that could help steer, some of these committees and stuff like that towards, towards that sort of thing. Because that you're right. It's every time that you have a shop that opens up, especially like I notice this like with restaurants, right? You'll have
Mhm.
somebody, and restaurant business is a tough business. I remember, first year of business 101, right? They said 80% of restaurants, die within the first year. They don't survive. A lot of it, has to do with everything from, they don't have the right resource, they don't have the right capitalization, or they just don't have a great product. Whatever the case is, there's a number of things that will drive these places out of business, but it's important, I think, to get to them before, they end up, in bankruptcy, and, before they even start, to help them set things up the right way from the very get-go. And if the town can offer that to to entrepreneurs that want to start a business and kind of take them down that pathway so that they can learn how to do it, I think you guys can have some great success. Now, you've coached youth programs, youth sports, you've led mentorship programs yourself. um, how do you plan to engage Charlestown's younger generation to ensure they feel invested in the town's future? You mentioned one thing, which was that in that mural, and bringing even people from the school art, programs and things like that. That is so critically important, because when people feel like they have some ownership in their town, if they have some pride, pride of ownership, you see this in neighborhoods all across the country, right? You'll see one neighborhood that nobody has pride of ownership. You got vehicles up on blocks and, garbage in the streets and on the sidewalks. And then you got other places where the local, people who live there will go, and like even where I live, we will round up, our neighbors, like once a month, and go do a trash pickup along the road leading into our neighborhood, because it's kind of a windy road out in the country. And, you get trash that ends up flying out of vehicle, truck beds, or unfortunately there are some people that just litter. But we go and we clean it up because we want to keep our neighborhood looking good. We want to keep the entrance, even the road to get to our neighborhood, looking good. And so we do this probably like 4 times a year, where we'll get everybody together and we'll just in mass go and pick up trash and things like that. Those types of things do give you that sense of ownership, right? Ownership and investment in your neighborhood. How do you get kids involved in that?
So I think that's a really great question. And I think particularly with this area, we're seeing such a shift where there are so many families moving into this area, buying a house here and choosing to make West Virginia their home. but we need to get them more plugged in and engaged with the community. It's very near and dear to my heart when you're talking about the litter cleanups. That's something that I myself have done along the banks of the Shenandoah River. That's just a few miles from where I live. That was something that I started doing while I was in college. Was actually for my birthday in springtime, organizing Shenandoah River bank cleanups. And I think just getting people out, getting them together, is such a wonderful thing. I think with the younger generation, we need to give them a reason to want to stay in Jefferson County, to stay in Charlestown, to stay in West Virginia. And I think that this is probably an issue that is something that the nation feels, is that a lot of their young people end up leaving and going towards a city. We certainly do need more opportunities here, more jobs, but there's just not a whole lot for young people to do. So I think that if we can get things going more, one of the things that I'd like to introduce is more park programming.
Mm.
Right now, there's a really great park that's close to me, the same one that I was a lifeguard at the pool there. But there's just very little going on at the park in terms of what is going on from day to day, other than just residents coming down and just doing something self-led. So I would very much like to get the community engaged more. I've already had some talks with our local parks and recs for the county, and they are very much on board. I'd like to get a yoga in the park initiative going to bring adults down to do that. There are a lot of opportunities that we have with doing, sports days with kids. And the great thing is, a lot of it just comes down to getting it advertised, setting things up, and then just inviting the community to come take part in things. I think just so much of in small towns is having the initiative to look around and just try to make these changes. I know that we see it certainly in the federal government, but it happens at a local level too, that bureaucracy moves very slowly.
Mhm.
So I think that that is one of the big benefits of local people deciding to get involved in the politics, is that so much of the things that these towns are facing, you just need some initiative, some new bright ideas, and members of the public that are passionate about serving. Yep, a
Mhm.
city council member who's doesn't have term limits and who's been on the council for maybe over 10 years. Maybe they don't have a lot of freshness and new ideas and passion. So that's the great thing about bringing in new folks, new ideas, to be able to bring that revitalization that so many of our towns need. And it really just takes the effort of being willing to step up, put yourself into a position that's a little bit uncomfortable, and just doing something for your community and actually stepping up to serve, not with any real benefit to yourself other than just improving the place that you call home.
Yeah, and even for some of these paid positions, that are part-time positions with the city, they're not you're not going to make a killing. You're not going to make a lot of money. If you are, there's something wrong. The half of the job is really it's about service, and so that I think that's great. Curious, does Charlestown have a community garden, and what are your thoughts on that?
So, from what I understand, the next town over, Ranson, has a community garden, but I'm not aware of their one being directly within Charlestown. Now, Ranson and Charlestown are certainly towns that are friends, they're next door to one another, but I don't believe we currently have one here in Charlestown.
And that's something that I've seen. It depends, that the partly has to be the culture, of the area, but I've seen that become, kind of a hub for bringing people together as well, especially in towns where they have like a town square and they need to do something with it, and so they turn it into a community garden, and everybody can come in. They can get like a small little plot, and they can grow their stuff there, and it becomes a really it's kind of a neat thing to see. But it also helps to supplement, folks that might want to have some healthy fresh vegetables. Um, there's a you've worn many hats. So you've been a plant researcher,
Yes.
you've been a victim advocate, an artist. What one passion project whether professional or personal, that you is something that you would love to bring to life in Charlestown if elected?
That's a great question. Well, since you had brought up, healthy food, that's something that I personally am very much a fan of. I would certainly consider myself to be part of that "Make America Healthy Again" movement, because we look around at the country, and we really do have so many problems here in the United States, with obesity, chronic
Mhm.
diseases, and there just being so many people that just don't seem to be reaching their full potential in their lives. And so having initiatives to get people active, to get people to clean up their diet, make things healthier, is something that I am so passionate about. In college, my minor was actually in nutrition. So in addition to being, a swim coach, a soccer coach, I have that background on the food side of things. And so something that I would love to see more of here is we do have a great farmers market that meets in the
Oh,
warmer months.
yeah.
But I would love to get more of our local schools plugged in with the farmers that are here, so then that way local produce can be used. But just also when I'm making decisions for the town, anything that I can do to promote health, to promote healthier foods and eating, is something that I think is just it's only going to help this part of town. It's only going to help the nation for us all to come together and to make these choices, to just pick a better future for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for residents of Ward 3 listening tonight, and I hope there's a few, and we got about 1,400 people listening right now. So, hopefully, a few of those are from your ward. What's one promise you're making to them if they entrust you with their vote? And why should they believe that you'll keep it?
So, what I would tell them is that I not only care about this community, but I care about them. I care about the residents here, I care about the business owners here, and I care about the people that choose to spend their time in Charlestown. One of the pillars that I was running on, in addition to the, health and safety, promoting small businesses, but the third is just being accessible to the community. We are meant to be a government for the people, by the people. And so, truly, I want everyone in my community to know that if I'm elected to Charlestown City Council, they have someone that they can come to directly. Please send me an email. It's Courtney Knill USA at gmail.com. Anyone, please reach out to me at any time. If it's something quick that I can answer for you, great. If it's a bigger problem, I'm happy to help you tackle it. I'll come meet with you. We can grab a coffee. Let's talk about it. Let's hear about what's going on for you in this town, because as much as I've been a resident here my whole life, almost 30 years, I only know what I know. And so even as I've seen with going out and knocking doors, meeting more people from the community, I've learned so much about different little parts of town that I just never would have known if I hadn't have gone out and actually talked to the residents. So truly, I want to be a representative that listens to the people. Of course, I have to have my core guiding values that point me to what's right and wrong. But for everything else, I just want to listen to the residents and make sure that their wishes are being followed for their community.
So, Courtney, you're a woman of many talents, including modeling and painting. If you had to create a piece of art to represent Charlestown's spirit, what would it look like and what colors would you use?
So that's a fun question. So something that I decided to use myself for my campaign, because in a small campaign, on a small race, you're doing everything yourself. And so I decided that when I was going to set up a website for my city council race, that I needed to, pick images and come up with imagery that I was going to use in front of our courthouse. It's our historic courthouse, has the clock tower up top, just so much wonderful history wrapped up in that. But that very much is a picture of downtown Charlestown. It's something that I think is pretty recognizable for
Mhm.
most people in this area. And in the springtime, there is a dogwood tree that blossoms every year. There are these really beautiful pink flowers.
Mhm.
And I think for me, that really encapsulates what Charlestown is that there's growth that is to come. There's vibrancy, there's color, there's friendliness, there's a warmth to it. So those like white and pink blossoms, like a blue sky, the sun rays coming down, maybe some couple white puffy clouds. That's the picture of Charlestown, where neighbors help neighbors, and it's just a good place to be. And it's somewhere that even if you leave for a while, you're always happy to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a very I love the dogwood tree. It's probably one of my favorites. We've got a couple of them on our property, and it's just such a beautiful tree. The some might think that local government is just about potholes and permits, right? That I think that's what most people think about when they think of city council, right, or even county government. And and that is a problem in that I think a lot of people go into those positions and they kind of get stuck there. It sounds like you're not going to be one of those that gets stuck there. That you are somebody that is concerned about more than just the necessities, if you will, and but about actually improving the quality of life, for the people in your community. Um, can you share an example of how a city council decision could transform a Charlestown resident's daily life and how you would approach making those decisions?
Sure. Well, as you said, there are a lot of different types of decisions that can be made. Certainly, I think things making our community somewhere that's friendly to businesses can have a very large impact. That can be, someone's whole way of life. Just a little earlier this week, I spoke with, unfortunately, a failed business owner that tried to set up shop in Charlestown. They had a great little ice cream shop, and unfortunately they didn't make it. And so I was able to sit down and listen to what problems they faced, even things as small as lack of signage and the town being a little
Mm.
too strict with what signs can be put up and what size and color and things like that. There's so many little things like that. I know that something that I'm quite passionate about is taking care of the natural environment that we're in here. And so, one of the initiatives that I know Charlestown is beginning to work on, and something that I will be support of, is bringing in more native trees and plant species into the community. One thing I would love to do is see in our parks that we have all native trees, because that's going to be home to all of our natural animals, wildlife, insects. And I think that if a whole town comes together to implement that kind of initiative, the natural environment around us really can be transformed. And so it's all going to be a cascade of little decisions and people coming together to create a much larger impact that no one could ever make just by themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for our national audience, many feel disconnected from politics, especially at the local level. I would say probably more so at the local level, which is it's kind of crazy, right? It should be the opposite. We
Right.
should be more connected at the local level because that's where we have the greatest impact. I can call up my city councilman, I can go knock on his door if I want to. Can't do that with, representative in Congress, right?
Hmm.
At least not easily. So how do how would you encourage Charlestown residents and people in small towns everywhere to get involved in public service, whether by voting, volunteering, or even running for office? What do you think, if you had one message to give them that might help motivate them in any of those areas, what would it be?
So I think there's a lot of people that like to sit around and look at the problems that they have in their community. don't be someone who sits on the side and is like, oh well, this needs to change, this needs to be better. You yourself need to have the initiative. And so I would say the one of the best things that you can do to start is whatever local government you have in your area, start showing up to the public meetings where decisions are made. Yes, there might be some, boring discussion that you'll have to get through, but if you don't know what's going on in your community, you're not going to be able to have the correct impact, because you're not going to understand the problems that they're facing, what things are even being dealt with. And so you have to get plugged into your local community. And I think that, especially in the world of politics, it's so easy to get really hung up on who the president is, or maybe it's your governor, your representative in the Senate or Congress, but there's so much more going on. And truly, it's the people local that are representing you that have some of the biggest impact in your life. We know that the federal government has an impact as well, but this that's close to you, you can actually make a change. So
That's
go
right.
out, find out what's going on, because if you're not informed, you're not going to really be able to make any good recommendations to your council member if you don't know what they're dealing with on a regular basis. So start showing up to things, get informed, then start talking to your other residents, form opinions, and then go about implementing the changes that you need to see, whether it just be making recommendations to your local folks, helping them to solve some of the more complex issues that they're dealing with. And then the sky's the limit for how you can apply yourself to your community, whether you're supporting good people getting into those offices, or just helping the candidates that are already there to make better decisions for your community. Most people, I want to say, would be glad to hear from you. I can't speak to each individual community, but I am excited when I see members of the public at the city council meetings. I'm glad that they're actually trying to be engaged and try to have a purpose, because that's what this is about. It shouldn't just be a couple people making the decision for this larger population of an area. No, the actual town, the residents should be involved. So take the initiative. I know people have lead these very busy lives, but go out, talk to your neighbors, and get involved. And chances are you're going to be really grateful that you actually did.
Yeah, and I can speak from somebody who was a city councilman at one point also, that if you approach your city council with a great idea and you're willing to do it, 9 times out of 10, as long as it's not violating some law, they're going to be like, go for it. Yeah, we'll support you in that. Because the fact is that there's a lot of great ideas that get brought to the table, but we need the people that are going to lead those initiatives. They're going to volunteer and do the work that's necessary to bring something about. One of the things that was like surprising to me, and this was something that I found, I took a lot of, um, I guess, a lot of pleasure in being able to have a impactful, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I got to have an impact. Was I was placed on the personnel committee, and I was like, "What is the personnel committee?" It wasn't anything that I wanted to do, but what it meant was that when we were doing hiring of police officers and
Mhm.
firemen and things like that, it was me and the one other member of the council, and then the city manager doing the interviews. And I found that to be just fascinating because there were some really good candidates and some really not so good candidates. And knowing that we were putting really good police officers on the streets of our town, that made me feel really good. Same thing with our fire company. And so I think that there's always that, maybe somebody is not as artistic as you, or maybe they don't have, a background in business or something, but there's always something that you can bring to the table. And that's the beauty of having representative government. It's like, even just the other night, I had Tom Willis, our state senator, on, and we were talking after the show, and we were talking about the difference between him and my other senator, Senator Thorne, Darren Thorne. and they're like, these guys are about as different as it gets when it comes to like their personality or the things that they're knowledgeable about. Tom's a lawyer. He's got his own practice. He's a military guy, Green Beret. Darren Thorne's a farmer. He's a man of the earth. He raises chickens and but just two really great men, and they work so good together as a team, and that's what's, I think, really awesome. And I know that there's a place for everybody. So I want to encourage everybody that's watching the show right now. Seriously, consider and think about it. Pray about it, about where you can make a difference in your community. Think about serving, especially at the local level. That's one of the most important places where oftentimes there's not enough decent candidates running for school board or for city council. And public service, especially locally, it can be demanding with long meetings, tough decisions. It's not very rewarding when it comes to pay. I think I was getting like, a $100 stipend, something like that, a month or whatever. And it was like, I was spending hours and hours and hours there, and then phone calls for hours and hours. But where you get where you really are blessed by it is your ability to be able to help people.
Yeah.
It really is a great source of altruism and that sense of purpose. Um, for you, what's one personal value or experience that you'll lean on to stay committed and resilient as a city council member? And how will it guide your service to Charlestown?
So I would have to say it's my faith. I'm a Christian. I have been for most of my life, and leaning on God to get me through the hard times is key. There's been many times, even just I'm not even in the seat yet, just in my campaign, that you get stressed out and you have to, lean on other people. You have to make the best of the time that you have, but Christ is my guider. That's my guiding principle. If there's something that I'm trying to decide with what's the right and wrong thing to do, I know that I can lean on the Bible to point me in the direction that I need to go. And I'm so grateful for my faith in giving me that, just so that way I don't have to wonder what direction I'm going. I already have a creator that points the way, and then it's just a matter of me, picking up the Bible, listening, praying, and talking with him about it.
Amen. And that's a perfect segue into how I always end my show, which is through prayer. And so before we go to prayer, though, I want to ask, where can people find you? Where can they engage with you? What's the best way for people that want to donate to your campaign, or if they want to come down? Listen, even more important, especially for these local positions, folks, if you live in the Eastern Panhandle, probably the best, most important thing that you can do for Courtney is volunteer to go knock on doors. That is one of the, listen, if I had been running for a probably county-wide or maybe even a local representative, position, I would have won because I had a massive number of people knocking on doors for me. Unfortunately, at the statewide election, with running for Congress, it wasn't enough. I also needed some serious money, and that's where I was lacking. But that's the beauty of local politics, is that the monetary needs are actually rather quite small. What you need is people that are going to volunteer, people that are going to come down, knock on doors, tell others about you, those types of things. So if people want to do that, if they want to volunteer or if they want to donate money, where can they do that?
Yeah, so let me tell you about all the different links that you'll need here. So the first place that I would send you is to my campaign website. That's going to be nillforcitycouncil.com. It's going to be my last name is Knill. That's nillforcitycouncil.com. On
Now,
there,
is
you'll
it the
find
number 4 or is it spelled out 4?
spelled out. Yep, nil
Okay.
for yep, FOR. Yep, nillforcitycouncil.com. On there, you'll find a link that will take you over. So that way, if you would like to donate to my campaign, I would greatly appreciate that. I've had so many people that have been generous because being, someone who's local, I'm not someone that came from a lot of money in order to do this sort of thing. I had to do fundraising to even be able to afford campaign signs and door knocking literature. So even little $20 donations, you might not think that that's something that's very significant, but in a race like mine, it truly is. If you're interested in following me on social media, I'm at Courtney Knill over on X. Over on Instagram, I have at Courtney Knill USA for my public profile, just associated with my X account. Then I also have at Knill for City Council. If you're interested in following my campaign page. But if you go to the website for my campaign, everything will link you there. I'm also Courtney Knill for City Council over on Facebook. So those are all the social media handles. And if I could just encourage anyone, if you're trying to do something yourself, if you're trying to run for office, just be prepared to have the follow through. Doing any of this is so much work. So if you do have other good people that are running in your, I would love to have volunteers. If anyone is free in the next week and a half before my race, please reach out. You can send me an email. It's CourtneyKnillUSA@gmail.com if you'd like to reach out. But please, even if you're not going to do anything with my race, if this is too soon for you, please get involved with other local races that are going on in your area. You have to care, even if it's a couple hours. That can be all the difference in small races. It can be tens of votes that separate one candidate from
That's
another.
right.
So I so appreciate you having me on tonight, Nate. And I just hope that your viewers will be a little bit inspired to get involved in their own communities, because truly it's something that if you start doing it, once you get that hunger for it and you see the fruit coming together, it's something so worthwhile.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, with that, let's go ahead and close in prayer. And I want to pray for you and your campaign, and also just for our country and for small towns all around. Heavenly Father, I thank you for Courtney and what you are doing in her life and your call to service for her. I pray your blessing would be on her, and no matter what the outcome of this is, Lord, that you would grow her in ways that she didn't even expect through this experience of running for office. I know, Lord, what it's like, and you've done that in my life as well. And I pray that you would give her city, the town, the Charlestown, Lord, that you would help that city for people to see the truth, and that they would elect the person that is going to care about them and care about their community and care about their town. And I pray, Lord, that you would help people to put aside their own political party, even, but that they would consider voting, even the Democrats, even the liberals would consider voting for Courtney. I know, Lord, that you can move the hearts and minds of the people. And I pray, God, that you would. And Lord, I pray for small towns, and not just small towns, but even big cities, Lord. We pray for our nation. And we ask, God, that you would raise up a new generation of people willing to serve, willing to dedicate themselves to service in their communities, in their churches, in their schools, in their police, Lord, in all areas of service, that they would be willing, in our military. God, I pray that you would restore that heart of service to the American people that once was a major part of every community across this country. Lord, we pray especially for our youth, as I think in many ways with the digital age, they are kind of lost to a lot of the connectedness, the real, tangible, in-person connectedness that many of us that are older had growing up. And I pray, God, that you would bring about a restoration of that community, that sense of community, that sense of connectedness. Lord, I just pray that you would bring in all of the necessary funds and the necessary volunteers to help with Courtney's effort in this race that she's running. I thank you for her and for the breath of fresh air that she is. And I just thank you for all that you're doing in this country right now. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So that's it for tonight, folks. This is This has been a really great show, and I was actually really surprised at just kind of how fun this was to do. Huge thank you to Courtney Knill for sharing her passion, vision, and heart for Charlestown. Folks, whether you're in Ward 3 or tuning in from across the country, Courtney's story reminds us that local leadership can spark real change, preserving what we love about our communities while building a brighter future. Get out there, vote, and get involved in your own town's story. Join us next time for more conversations that raise the stakes and inspire action. This is Nate Cain signing off. Stay bold, stay engaged, and keep raising Cain.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.